Hey everybody, Deathblade here with another Yin Yang China, where I'm talking about the ups and downs of living in China as an expat. It's really hot here in my house. I don't have any air conditioning, so I have the door open there and there's a street right out there, so there may be some car sounds. Apologize about that. Before I get started, if you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description below and do like and subscribe and share the video. And I also love all the comments as well, so please do leave a comment with your thoughts. Today I'm talking about the practice in China of wearing slippers in the house. Now anybody who is familiar with Asian households will know that Asians often wear slippers in the house, and that is not limited to China. Whether you have people from Japan, Korea, Laos, Thailand, whatever it is, it's really common. When I was younger, I remember, seeing households that would have, 100 shoes all piled up outside the front door, and you kind of know, okay, that's an Asian household. And in fact, so I'm wearing my own slippers here. These, I have very fond feelings about this pair of slippers. I've had them for a few years now. Brought them from China here to the United States. Pretty cheap, just some sort of like plastic or whatever, but I've broken them in and they're very, very comfortable. So what's the deal with this wearing slippers in the house? I'm gonna be specifically talking about China because different Asian cultures are different, and I don't claim to be an expert on any of the other cultures. And in fact, I'm not even an expert on Chinese culture. I just lived there for a long time, and my wife is Chinese, and I've spent the better part of the past several years working on translating and improving my language skills, so I do have a little bit of a different insight. Quick caveat I want to throw in there: I do not live in China anymore. I did live in China for 8 years, so for any of you who are new to the channel, I was in China for 8 years straight and just recently moved back to the United States, so the contrast between different cultures is still very fresh in mind. So what's the deal with this shoe thing? Well, to be honest, I have not done any research on it, and I haven't really even talked to very many Chinese people about the actual subject. I never asked anybody, hey, why do you wear slippers in the house? So, I don't honestly think there's any major cultural background to it. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, but what I'm going to tell you now is what I observed through many years of life in China. So what I observed is that there goes a car. So what I observed is that, like I said, just about everybody does it. Everybody has a pair of slippers that they switch out of to enter the house. However, Chinese culture is not like Japanese culture. My understanding of Japanese culture is that it's a matter of etiquette to take off your shoes before entering a house. It's not like that in China. It's more just kind of a practical thing that everybody does. And in fact, if you go as a visitor to a Chinese person's house, the majority of those Chinese people will tell you that you don't need to remove your shoes. Many times I went over to a friend's house or an acquaintance, workmate, or a customer when I was in school. Like the parents of the school. And I would show up with my shoes and I would kind of reach down and take them off, and they would say, oh no, you don't have to take them off. Many households will have guest slippers for their guests, but many of them will just say that you don't have to take your shoes off. In fact, and I'm kind of getting into the downsides now. I went to houses where it would be like raining outside, my shoes would be muddy, and they would be, no, it doesn't matter, just come in. And then you just walk in the house and get mud everywhere, and then at a certain point they would pull out a mop and kind of clean up a little bit, and then you'd walk around and get more mud, and then eventually when you left they would clean up again. Most households in China, I would say the vast majority, have tile floors, and so getting them dirty is not really a big deal. They can be cleaned up easily. Carpet is a big rarity in China. You almost never see carpet. And so from a practical standpoint, getting mud tracked into the house is not a big deal. It can be cleaned up very easily. Back in China, we actually had a place that had not tile, but wood floors. And so what we would do, because workers would come over, to fix a sink, or from the management company of the apartment complex we lived in, to check certain things. Sometimes those workers would bring shoe covers with them, not always. So we would just have a set of shoe covers by the door, and then they could cover their shoes when they came in to keep clean. Otherwise, they might not necessarily think about it. Now, I'm gonna get into one major downside about this, and it actually doesn't have to do with the slippers themselves, but with the general situation in China. So I got used to wearing slippers mostly when I was in China, and again, like I pointed out, it's not like it's culturally or in terms of etiquette required for people to wear slippers in the house, but I got to the point where I get grossed out by the idea of wearing my shoes into the house. Why? Well, in China, it is common for people to spit everywhere. It's a big problem in China. I'm talking about outdoors, in the staircase, in the elevator, everywhere. People will just spit, and you never know when you're gonna be walking right across that and then bring that right into your house. There's also a big cultural thing where urinating on the street is not a big deal, especially for young kids. Parents will literally just have their kids pee anywhere. I was walking through the food court in the mall by my house once, and the grandmother just had the kids squat down right in the middle of the food court aisle to just pee, and then just walked off. And then even pooping is not off the table. I literally watched outside of the mall in the city that I lived. A mom had the kid who was, I would guess, between 8 to 10, just kind of walk off to the side, squat down and poop right there in the middle of the public square. It was kind of off to the side, thanks mom for that, but it was still just pooping right there. And then that's not to mention the issue of throwing up. I talked about this in another video. You can check that out here. You can check that out, talking about alcohol. Getting drunk is not a big deal, and throwing up publicly is not a big deal. I don't want to gross you out, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to make China look bad, but I cannot count how many times I got up to go to work in the morning and would be walking down the street and see piles of throw up here or there, especially near the restaurants. So the point of all of that is, especially in China, there's a lot of dirty, gross stuff on the ground, and you never know when you're stepping on it. And because of that, the idea of walking around and having that stuff be on my shoes and get into my house just really grosses me out. And that's especially considering that, I have a kid now. He is walking, so maybe not as big a deal, but especially when he was in the crawling stage, just is, I can't, it's just too gross to think that my kid might be crawling around on poop, pee, spit, or vomit that I tracked in through my shoes. So that's my take on slippers in the house. Like I said, I still wear slippers. I think that it makes me feel a little bit cleaner. It does keep the carpets cleaner, and it's, I think, overall just a good thing. And I do have to point out that coming back to the United States, to where people commonly wear shoes inside the house, it was a little bit jarring for me. And we have a little sign outside the front of our place here that says, please remove your shoes. But a lot of times people that come over, whether it's delivery people or workers or whatever, they sometimes don't notice it, and it's like I kind of feel weird asking them to take off their shoes because I know it's not the cultural thing to do here in the United States. So anyway, if you're thinking of moving to China or taking a trip there, don't worry about it too much. Usually people will say that you don't need to take off your shoes. Probably the polite thing to do would be to at least start to take them off and then see what they say. If they just kind of watch you taking off your shoes, then maybe they do want you to have your shoes off in their house, and then in that case they should provide a pair of slippers. And then if you want to wear them, that's fine. Don't want to wear them, that's fine. My personal suggestion would be, if you have socks, you don't necessarily need to wear the slippers, but if you have bare feet, yeah, I would probably go with the slippers if you have the option. All right, that's it for this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Galsala.